Jackie's podcast, number 21, March 22nd, 2025, and we're rolling.
Hello, my name is Jackie Geringer McDermott, and we're recording live from the English Valley History Center in North English, Iowa. This diary or journal was written by my great-great-aunt, Mary Elizabeth Claypool Wade, who was known as Libby Wade. Here's a picture of Libby with her brother Henry and one of her in her old-fashioned hat. She was my grandmother's aunt and the matriarch of our very, very large family. Libby lived a half a block east of Main Street in a little house on Oak Street in North English, Iowa, until near the end of her life in 1959. She was 71 years old in 1946. I don't remember her, but she knew me as a baby. Downtown North English was also the center of my life as I grew up. I would like to introduce you, page by page, to the cast of characters from North English, Iowa, and the surrounding English Valleys area. Sunday, September 1st, 1946. Wayne Kurtz's birthday. Cold, about 58 degrees here at 8:30. Wind from the north. Went with Verdi to see Mrs. Swope. She was 90 on the 29th. We went over to see Roy and Stella and stopped at Bursler's. Roy is having trouble with his ear. Warrens moved their fruit from our cellar. Russell and George Hornick went fishing. Caught a 6-pound carp. Wayne Kurtz is married to Libby's granddaughter, Evelyn Wade Kurtz. And here's the picture that he's in from the centennial years. He's the second one in on the back row there. Verdi Mahana McKinstry is Libby's best buddy and Verdi's sister-in-law. Mrs. Laura Swope, right here, is the oldest person in town. We will have a feature story on her in a few minutes. Roy and Stella Wallace that they went to visit are the parents of daughter-in-law Lena Wade. This is Roy on this side right here. Warren and Lena and their 2 girls have moved to the farm recently, vacated by her parents' move to town. So therefore, they're getting their canned fruit from Libby's basement, as they now have a place to store their own canning. Russell is Libby's 39-year-old son who lives with her and loves to fish, plus the family eats a lot of his catch. September 2nd, 1946, Labor Day. Richard Cheney and others were here moving the car shed. Still cold, 48 degrees at 8 a.m. Mildred R. called and asked me to go to WSCS. I feel pretty tired after my walk. Jenny was here. They went to Evelyn's for Wayne Kurtz's birthday. Richard Cheney was a friend from town. I don't know what the deal was about moving the car shed. My brother lived on Libby's place a few years after Libby was gone, and there was no car shed then, so maybe it was portable. Mildred Reese was Russell's longtime girlfriend. She's right here in this picture, the girl in this one. And of interest also, there's her brother Walter that died in the 1918 flu. Her other 2 brothers were Harold and Raymond. Libby is glad to catch a ride to WSCS, which is a Christian women's group, and other activities, as she does not drive. Many women, including both of my grandmothers, never learned to drive in those days. Jenny is Libby's daughter-in-law, the wife of son Wayne or Perky Wade. September 3, 1946. Brother Henry's 82nd birthday. Not as cold this morning. Russell went to CR. I went uptown. Cashed my check and his. Went to WSCS at Lenny Morson's. Mildred R. took me and several others. Maddie Agson Long died this morning. Ruth McCarter has a new boy since last night, Richard Wayne. Henry Claypool was Libby's older brother by 12 years. When he's right here in this picture. When we were researching last week, Dave Jackson found an article about Henry being terribly injured with dynamite at their farm when he was working and bowling up tree stumps at age 60. He survived but has since passed on. Maggie Agson Long was an old friend from the days when Libby lived at Green Valley area east of town, and she was also a member of the Rebecca Lodge. Maggie's funeral was at the Champion Hill Church and interment at the Champion Hill Cemetery. We have a book here at the History Center about Champion Hill that Suzanne Moffett and Scott Romine authored together. Richard Wayne McCarter was in the class of 1965, and here's his picture. Right there on the bottom. September 4th, 1946. Glenn Cobb brought us some apples. Warmer today. Russell is hauling coal. I mended overalls, etc., and then went to Verdi's. Mrs. Lockridge came and I went over home to visit with her. And Mrs. Mary Newhouse was here too. Glenn Cobb was married to granddaughter Hazel, and there's their picture. Russell works for the Home Lumber Company and driving a truck, and one of the things they haul is coal. Mrs. Lockridge and Mary Newhouse were friends. September 5th, 1946. Washed in the AM and went with Warren, Lena, and Stella to Maggie Long's funeral in the PM. Saw a lot of folks I hadn't seen for years. The funeral was at Champion Hill. A nice day, warmer. Hattie was over. Told of Gerald's 12-pound boy. Hattie Newberry Killian is a neighbor and friend. And Gerald Newberry's 12-pound boy was Darrell Lynn Newberry, a member of the English Valley class of 1964. His mother, Greta Ballard Newberry, resides at the English Valley Care Center and is well over 100 years old now. Here's a picture of Darrell Newberry. He's on this side, right there. September 8th, 1946. Another warm day. I had tomatoes, apples, and ironing on hand. Russell went to see R. Mary R. was here. Had a letter from Anna in the evening. The boys are all in school. Richard has new teeth, got them in Dallas. Libby had much to do. Tomatoes and apples to can or store, and ironing to do. Russell often goes to Cedar Rapids to do trucking for the Home Lumber Company. Mary R. is Libby's friend. She's right here on this side in this picture. This is her younger days. Daughter Anna and her husband Richard Cray live in Texas. They're right here. And all three of their boys are in college or high school now. There they are. The Mylan Richard, Verl, and Arlen are their names. September 7th, 1946. Ironed, canned tomatoes. Jenny and Michael D. were here. Mary R. was here. Got some syrup. Rained a little. Warmer. Larry O'Brien came home on leave. Mrs. Bolt's here. Her sister was with her, Mrs. Ballard. Mr. Hamilton is sick. Michael D. is Libby's oldest great-grandson, baby Mickey Yoss, a member of the EV class of 1964. Larry O'Brien is the younger brother of Ellen Gerard and of Ed O'Brien. Elizabeth Geiger Bolts, or Lizzie Bolts, and her sister Sarah Geiger Ballard, who was married to Franklin Ballard, were not as close acquaintances to Libby's as some of the locals, as they were from Millersburg originally. Sunday, September 8th, 1946. Rained last evening and again in the night. Warm today. We were home most of the day. Russell was away in the evening. Dean came down and visited with me. Ross Mahana is sick. Dean Claypool is Libby's youngest nephew on the Claypool side. He's the center of this picture with his parents and older brothers. He was the youngest nephew on the Claypool side, the youngest son of her brother Verner or Vernie Claypool. Dean was a bachelor who married late in life to Thelma Cobb Lown Claypool, the mother of Darlene Vercondy. Ross Mahana was a businessman uptown. We will have more about him in the coming weeks. September 9th, 1946. I washed in the morn. The Warners were home from their trip to Washington, D.C. Dr. Geiger is home. Hattie was here a while. I picked some grapes and juiced them. I'm awfully tired today. It's cooler and rainy. Reception for the teachers at the church tonight. E.B. Warner, Ellison Barnes Warner, was Russell's boss at the Home Lumber Company. He was the grandfather of my listener, Mary Warner Cunard, and her sister, Betsy Warner Pilkington. Here's what the North English Record said about their trip to see their son, Norman Warner, and his wife in Washington, D.C. The Norman Warners are ready to leave for Belgium. Mr. and Mrs. E.B. Warner and Mrs. Dean Laux of Pierre, South Dakota, returned Sunday night from a visit with their son and daughter, Mr. and Mrs. Norman Warner, in Chevy Chase, Maryland, a suburb of Washington, D.C. The Norman Warners were scheduled to sail for Antwerp, Belgium from New York Harbor on September 18th, but the maritime strike might delay their departure. Norman will be the Vice Consul of the United States. Then Mrs. Laux left for Pierre from Cedar Rapids on Monday afternoon, accompanied to Cedar Rapids by Mrs. G.A. Lords, Mrs. Bruce Warner, and Mrs. E.B. Warner. Dr. U.S. Geiger, who lived in the big house at the corner of Main Street and Oak Street, has been in the Navy, and he's home now, too. Hattie Killian is Libby's neighbor and friend. September 10th, 1946. Temperature 54 degrees at Des Moines this morning. Made some grape jelly. Messy job. Went to lodge. Several new petitions. Hazel and Frida are two of them. Leona shoot glances in the hospital. Evidently, a person had to petition the lodge if they wanted to join. Her young married granddaughter, Hazel Cobb, and granddaughter-in-law, Frida, the wife of Bud Wade, both wanted to join the Rebecca Lodge. And Leona Glantz was a family friend that was in the hospital. September 11th, 1946. Myrtle's and Lou's birthdays. I ironed and mended. Hazel brought me some plums and apples. Hattie was here in the evening, brought ice cream. Evelyn was here a while and brought me a book to read, The Dark Wood. Millard and Molly are home from their trip. Myrtle Claypool Mall, in the corner here, was Libby's older sister, who has since passed away. And Lou was Lou Claypool Pettibone, the woman in this picture, the daughter of her Uncle Samuel Claypool and his wife Mary Tabor Claypool, and the wife of Oscar Leroy Carter Pettibone. Granddaughter Hazel lives on a farm, and she knows that her grandmother will make delicious jams, jellies, and butters from the fruit that she brings to share. I'll bet that ice cream that neighbor Hattie brought was homemade ice cream. Granddaughter Evelyn knows that her grandmother Libby loves to read. Here's a picture of Evelyn. She's right there in the family picture. The Dark Wood was a 1946 novel about post-war psychological readjustment, a current topic after World War II. Millard and Molly Cheney. Here's Millard. And here's Molly with her daughter Mary. I took these off of the big Cheney picture we have here. They are cousins of Libby's. Millard Fillmore Claypool is the son of her cousin Wallace Claypool and his wife Ina Bell McKinstry Claypool. September 12th, 1946. Made plum jelly and butter. Russell went to Cedar Rapids. Talked to Larry O'Brien. He is to go back to San Diego tomorrow. Cold. A letter from Anna. They are setting more grapefruit, 20 acres now. Russell drives a truck for Home Lumber. Larry O'Brien had just graduated in 1946 and was the younger brother of Ellen Gerard and Ed O'Brien and others. He had joined the Navy, and according to the North English Record, was returning to Naval Aerial Gunnery School in Alameda, California. Daughter Anna and her husband Richard Cray have a citrus orchard with tomatoes, grapefruit, etc. in Texas. They now have 20 acres of grapefruit. Friday the 13th, September 13th, 1946. Cool enough to have a fire. Mary R. was here, Mary Newhouse, and Hattie too. Mary R. sold her chickens, young roosters, at 39 cents per pound. Everything is higher. Meat is very scarce. Reva was here, told of Leona's illness. Mary Regseger and Mary Newhouse and Hattie Killian had come over to talk, so spend time together, etc. Reva Gilchrist Claypool Wyant was a friend, telling Libby of the illness of their friend Leona Glantz. Leona and Reva and Libby's granddaughter Evelyn Wade Kurtz were all in the class of 1939 together. September 14th, 1946. Men here to finish the garage. Maud was here. She came home last night from Philadelphia. Martha Sears was here in the PM. Cad was taken to Sigourney Hospital today. Jenny, Belva, and Baby were here. Maud Foster Claypool is the wife of Libby's nephew, Ray Claypool, and also Libby's friend. She had just returned from 2 weeks of visiting in the home of her sister, Amy Foster Fawcett, in Pennsylvania. Martha Sears was a friend and the grandmother of Kathy O'Rourke. Cad Claypool was the widow of Libby's cousin, Ulysses Grant Claypool, known as Grant Claypool. Her maiden name was Carrie Summit, and she had previously been married to Lafayette Mullen. Her nickname was Cad. Daughter-in-law Jenny and her daughter Belva and Belva's son Mick Yoss came up to Libby's to visit. They live a block away. September 15th, 1946. Squirrel season opened today. Russell borrowed Roller's gun and got 8. He gave 2 to Les. I went over to Verdi's in the PM, alone most of the day. Warmer, have a toothache, wrote to Anna. Verdi Mahana McKinstry is Libby's buddy. Les Roller was Russell's 73-year-old friend and the father of Mrs. Means, our teacher at English Valleys. And he's the younger guy up here in the top with the baby, which would be Mrs. Means' brother. I was sort of surprised that Russell doesn't have a gun. Maybe he does, and thought Les Roller had a better gun to shoot squirrels with. FYI, these people will be eating the squirrels. Squirrels were considered a delicacy by some of the older folks I knew. That is the end of the diary portion of the program for this week. The English Valley History Center has been operating on Main Street in North English since 2006. The center operates a museum, monthly programming, a community coffee shop, and provides meeting spaces for groups and organizations. These include family and class reunions, celebrations, gatherings, and club meetings. The History Center offers all of its services by donations only. It does not have annual memberships like many other historical organizations and relies largely on private and community donations. It is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and donations are tax deductible. Your support of the History Center would help continue its operations and provide a valuable community asset. Please send donations to the English Valley's History Center, P.O. Box 70, North English, Iowa 52316. Can I get a drink? Our featured story this week is Laura Swope. Laura Swope was the oldest person in North English for many years and the only surviving widow of a Civil War veteran in town. Here is a picture of Laura printed in the paper on her 97th birthday. She's right here. It's a 5-generation picture with her daughter Millie Knipper behind her, granddaughter Laura Schaff on this side, and great-granddaughter Doris Brock and great-great-grandson Billy Brock from South English. Laura reached the age of 102 before she passed away in 1954. Laura McKinstry was born August 29, 1851 at Henderson, Illinois. In an interview with the Williamsburg newspaper when she was 97 years old, she recalled watching the troops drill near her childhood home in 1861 as the Civil War was on. Her parents were Alexander McKinstry and Rebecca Backus. After the war, the family moved to Kansas in a covered wagon, but after a year of drought, relocated to the North English area, again traveling by covered wagon in 1866. Beginning at age 16 and continuing for 10 years, Laura taught at local schools, including Yankee Point and the North English School. She married Benjamin Swope in 1881, who was a Civil War veteran. They farmed for 27 years and then moved to North English. They had 4 children: Ross Swope, Arthur Swope, Mattie Malloy, and Rose Millicent Knipfer. Laura was still living alone when she was 91 years old, listening to the radio, enjoying her flowers, and keeping up with the times. After the death of her husband, she lived with her widowed daughter, Millie Knipfer, in North English. Millie and her husband, Godfrey Knipfer, were the parents of Laura Shaw, Francis Pierce, Ernest Knipfer, and Frank Knipfer, and the grandparents of several locals, including Stan, Glenn, and Ross Knipfer, and Doris Brock. The family often had an open house in honor of Laura Swope's birthday, and she was able to greet the visitors and often received many cards. On her 96th birthday, the North English Record noted that her faith, cheery disposition, and courage has aided her in overcoming the affliction of arthritis, which she has suffered greatly for a long time. She kept up with her correspondent for many years. Laura was a friend to the school children. Over 100 children from North English Grade School came to serenade her on her 100th birthday. I had read about that in the newspaper, and yesterday I ran into Amy Andreessen's mother, Linda Lee, at lunch, and she said that she was one of those 100 children who went to serenade Laura Swope. Linda Reed, the daughter of Toonie and Pauline Reed, were in grade school that day. She remembers the children marched down from the school to Laura Swope's backyard and sang to her for her birthday. In the fall of 1951, when she was over 100 years old, Laura voted in the town election. She also voted for President Ulysses S. Grant after the Civil War. There was a cute story in the newspaper from when Carl Hogendorn first met Laura Swope. Last week, I had the occasion to call at the home of Mrs. Laura Swope. I have been in North English for nearly 10 years, and I had never seen this grand old lady. At any rate, I knocked at her door, and she answered. Mrs. Swope took one look at me and said, "You're not Mr. Hogendorn, are you?" I answered yes. Then she said, "Why, I thought you were an older man. You're only a boy." Well, that made me feel pretty good to know that I'm retaining that youthful look so well, and that, though in my years I'm only a boy compared to Mrs. Swope, who will be 92 next August. Today in the diary in 1946, according to the North English Record, this is what happened. Mrs. Laura Swope celebrated her 95th birthday Thursday, August 29th at her home in North English. Mrs. Swope is enjoying unusually good health for one of her years. She received the usual amount of cards and other gifts from her many friends and relatives. 2 of her neighbors, Mrs. Lizzie Bolts and Mrs. L.A. Miller, who'd be Mrs. Old Doc, baked her a birthday cake. Mrs. Ray Claypool sent her remembrance from Philadelphia, where Mrs. Claypool was visiting her sister, and visitors calling on her on her birthday were Ida Ferris, Anna Leslie, Mrs. Fred Turner, Belle King, Addie Lockridge, Mrs. George Johnston, Elsie King, Addie Fancher, Stella Wallace, Laura and Marlene Schaff, Alice and Ernest Knipfer, and those calling after her birthday were Martha Sears, Alice Van Auken, Gertie Harris, Libby Wade, Bertie McKinstry, and 2 little friends, Sandra and Joe Mason, who presented her with a gift from their grandparents, Mr. and Mrs. Dow Mason. Mrs. Swope wishes to thank her many friends for the kind and loving remembrances. I also enjoyed this blurb from the Christian church minister who went to make a house call on Laura Swope a couple years before when she was 93. Some days ago, I called on the oldest member of our congregation, Mrs. Laura Swope, who is 93 years young. It is a pleasure to talk to the old saint. Every sentence is packed with love, wisdom, and comfort. She recited a poem that I want to pass on to you. for people will talk. If you draft in the fashion, don't think to escape. They'll criticize then in a far different shape. You're ahead of your means, or your tailor's unpaid. Not a thing you can do, not a voice you'll evade, for people will talk. If old-fashioned your hat, someone, of course, will take notice of that, and hint rather strong that you can't pay your way. But take no notice of that, for people will talk. They'll talk fine before you, but then to your back, of venom and slander there's never a lack. How funny and polite in all they say, but bitter as gall when out of your way, for people will talk. The best way to do is to do as you please, for your mind, if you have one, will then be at ease. Of course, you will meet with all kinds of abuse. Don't think to stop them, it isn't any use, for people will talk. Linda Fraser Adams contacted me this week. She is the daughter of Leo and Virginia Fraser. She told me about 3 generations of the Fraser family who have qualified for the state basketball tournament. She asked me to find some pictures from the 1953 and 1977 girls' teams that went to the state basketball tournaments. Her aunt Neva Fraser was on the 1953 team from Kinross. That team won 4th place. Her aunt Neva Fraser was on the 1953 team. In this picture are Neva Fraser, Linda's aunt. She's in the back on this side, starting back over here. Carol E. Morrison, Lois Kaufman, Henrietta Gent, Darlene Kirko, Jackie Newman, Shirley Greiner, Bonnie Johnson, Pauline Gent, Karen Blaylock, Phyllis Carr, Donna Stoner, mascot Marsha Morrison in the front, and in the back row, Dixie Sightsinger, chaperone Pauline Hinton McKenna, and Coach John Bauslag. Linda Fraser, who married Alan Adams from Watchyear, was on the 1977 team that went to state. In this picture are from front row, left to right, Crystal Shetler, Cindy Baines, Patty Voss, Angie Roy, Kim Gorsh, and Julie Kaufman. In the back are Dave Hutchcroft, head coach, Michelle Stroman, Linda Fraser, Pam Eru, Liz Terrell, Christy Kaufman, Susie Sauter, Sheila Terrell, and assistant coach Don Banning. Don Banning, who is on the History Center board, pointed out that the coaches had nifty corduroy jackets. And Scott Romine pointed out that they have their mascot in the front. It was a bear, and they had to have it everywhere they played. Linda's daughter Amber played volleyball in high school and is married to Adam Norris, who was a great basketball player from Oskaloosa. Adam started teaching his boys all the skills when they were small. Last week, senior Landon Norris and his brother Lincoln Norris were on the Knoxville, Iowa State Tournament team. Here's the picture of the boys with their team. And I also have a picture of Landon Norris, who is a senior, and Lincoln Norris, who is a sophomore. And also this week, for the first time in Knoxville high school history, the Panthers have placed 2 boys on the Iowa Print Writers Association All-State teams. Senior Landon Norris becomes the 4th Panther to earn first-team honors, while his brother Lincoln Norris makes the 2nd team this year. And then here's another picture of the boys in action. And we do have some other teams from English Valley that went on to state, and we'll do a spot on them another day. But I also wanted to show you, here's the trophy from the 1953 team. Alan Ackerman brought this in. They resurrected it from Kinross and brought it over here to the History Center if you'd like to see it. And then we have a poster board on the 1953 team. This big board here that has that original picture that I showed you. All sorts of different things about the team because they ended up getting 4th place at state. Do you want to see this one better? Come over here and take a look. Correspondence. Mark Claypool wrote and said, Jackie, each week the names and people from the past sure takes me down memory lane. Liesl Miller was such a kind and gentle man. I remember delivering milk to him, and even as a young kid, he had gum that he passed out. The work you do on putting these together, Jackie, is absolutely fantastic. I enjoy these trips back in time. Jeannie Gardner-Lentz contacted me on YouTube and said, I love the spot on Liesl Miller. He was a true gentleman and friend. Thanks for your efforts, Jackie. My friend Helen Kirkpatrick Schwiedert from Colesburg, Iowa and Lake Placid, Florida, called Sunday morning when she was driving north up out of Miami and said that I had the name of one of Liesl Miller's sisters wrong, so I would like to clarify that the sister's name was Edith Miller Carter. She was the wife of Wayne Carter, and they lived over on Cherokee Hill when I was growing up. I found this picture in the 1908-1909 North English High School girls basketball team that Scott Romine posted this online this week. The first girl on the left is Amy Foster, who was the sister of Maud Claypool, who was married to Libby Wade's nephew, Ray Claypool. You might remember that Maud went with Amy to Philadelphia for 2 weeks. The other girls are Fern Thomas, Molly Wine, Pearl Hathaway Coach, and Marie Mons. They called them the Bloomer Girls. While I was searching for photos last week, I found the first edition of the North English Methodist Church directory. In it was a picture of Maud Claypool when she was older, and this is what I remember looking like when she lived just west of my friend Helen in the when the Kirkpatricks lived on West Clark Street in the Green and White House in the 1960s. Next Sunday, March 30th at 2 p.m. will be the first program at the English Valley's History Center for this year. The program is Iowa Scenic Views by the Foot with Tyler Sullivan. When you think of Iowa, what are things that come to mind? Did you know that Iowa has 99 counties and 101 courthouses? Tyler Sullivan has been to 96 out of the 99 counties and has visited 1,272 cities across the state. He is also running a mile at least each one of these communities and makes it more memorable, and he creates a poem for each county he visits. So please come next Sunday at 2 p.m. to see his program. And also, I would like to remember this week Mary Della Ballard from the class of 1961 who passed away. She is right here in these pictures. Our condolences to the family. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Nice job, Jackie, and that's a wrap.